All right, today we have one of the most iconic, influential, inspirational people in San Diego County, and one of the people that I've had the pleasure of being around and getting to know a little bit, Pastor Miles Mcpherson from the Rock Church. Hey, what's going on? It's Ruslan with KingsDreamENT.com. This channel exists to encourage, empower, inspire you to live out God's dream for your life. And I am beyond excited today, man. I have one of the brothers that not just does a lot of work in San Diego. He's an accomplished author, speaker, but this is somebody that was actually pivotal in me coming to the faith and my relationship with Jesus. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Pastor Miles Mcpherson.
What's up? What's up? Are you from the East Coast?
I am not.
Because you said influential.
That's all the rap music. That's all the rap
music. That's New York.
Yeah. No, I grew up on a lot of hip hop. So, man, how you feeling today?
I feel good. I feel very honored to be on your show.
Okay.
Honored to be on your show.
I've been working for a minute to get this interview, so I'm very excited to have you in the space. So one of the things you don't know is, and I feel like I've told you this before, the year was 2001, and I was at the time dating a girl I shouldn't have been dating. I was involved in some stuff I shouldn't have been involved in, and I remember getting an invite to this thing called the Miles Ahead Crusade.
Wow.
And I was like, what is this?
How old were you?
17. This was going into my senior year of high school.
Wow.
And I got this invite, and they're like, yeah, there's some hip hop playing there. Some guys called Cross Movement. I was like, I don't know who these guys are.
I love Cross Movement.
You know, and they were like, you should come out. And so I came out with a bunch of friends. And up until that point, I was going to New Venture Christian Fellowship, which I know you know, Pastor Sean up there. And I had 1 foot in, 1 foot out. 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And I remember going to that crusade. I heard you preach the gospel. I had never heard it demonstrated that way. But that was the night that I actually put my faith in Jesus. And that was many years ago.
It's funny you say that because someone asked me if you can do, if there's something you want to do. And they asked me all the dreams I had. I said, I think I want to start youth crusades again because those were kids like you. Kids, now adults come up to me and say, hey, I got saved at the Miles Ahead Crusade. I had a mom here at our church with her teenage kid at a youth event saying she got saved at the crusade.
That's crazy.
So yeah, those are some great events.
You have a book out that I'm a huge fan of, but before we get into that, tell us a little bit about your story. You're originally from the East Coast, came out to San Diego to play professional football, and God just rocked your life.
So I grew up in New York, Long Island, and got drafted to Los Angeles Rams at a University of New Haven, Connecticut. Okay. And got cut by the Rams, played for the Chargers for 4 years. My first 2 years I was doing cocaine, smoking weed, living wild. Got saved, stopped doing that. And one day, April 12th, 1984. And then said, okay, God, I was going 100 miles an hour for football. I'm going 100 miles an hour for you. Played 2 more years, but started doing Bible study on the team, teaching Bible study on the team. And then I retired in August of 1986. And started as a youth pastor September 1986, like the next week.
You got saved and it was radical. Everything right away. Because for me, it wasn't like that. But for you, it was like you're going one way, literally the other. Do you think it's the way you heard the gospel, or do you think it was your personality type, or just it hit you a certain way?
The first time I accepted the Lord was I was 19. And then 5 years later, after not walking with God, I just got tired. And I said, I'm done. Today I'm done. And I just recommitted my life to the Lord. And I already knew that what I was doing wasn't working. So I was ready to walk away from it. And you have to be convinced. People don't change until staying the same hurts more than changing. And for me, staying the same would have hurt more than change. So I just said, Lord, I'm committing my life to you. I gave cocaine, partying, everything I had, and it didn't deliver. So now I said, I'm gonna trust you. And I knew God was faithful. So that was a no-brainer.
Yeah. So you jump into youth ministry right away, and I remember hearing you speak about this. You said you guys were growing the youth ministry. And is it true that you guys were doing video announcements back in the 80s?
Oh, we were ahead. We were doing video announcements. We had kids preaching on campuses. Yeah. Yes, we had video announcements. And some of them were skits as well. But when I was gone on a Sunday, we had raised up a teenager to preach, teenager to do announcements, teenagers to do worship. They did everything. They did video announcements. We did worship. We put TVs in the ceilings.
In the 80s.
Oh, yes.
That's crazy.
We said, let's just do it. Let's just do it. It was kind of like, you know, when you think back on it, it doesn't seem like anything creative now.
Yeah.
And to me, even then, it was just common sense. Let's just put TVs up there, and we got these old janky TVs, and but it was, and we had a VHS, big old ginormous camera. Yeah. But yeah, we did all that.
You dropped the leadership principle that I thought was such a gem, and I don't hear enough people talk about. This was at the what was the conference we just did together? The
Do
something conference, which was super dope. And it hit me, and I was like, this is such a genius leadership principle. You said for every 10 youth that would come in, you'd create 7 positions for them to do stuff.
Right. Yeah, and I learned that actually in school. For every 10 people, try to create 7 volunteer roles. And so we make stuff up. We had flying tigers, and I think World War II, they would have 2 planes attack 1 plane. And so we would pair kids up and say, look, when you see someone new come in, you two, we had different pairs. By 2s, you would go out and greet that kid, sit with them, sit with her, ask them their name, 2-on-1. So that provided a lot of opportunities. We had kids setting up chairs. We had kids doing announcements, preaching. Yeah. You know, doing worship. We have a kid do an announcement in the beginning and a different kid do an announcement at the end of the service, just to give kids opportunity. So we just created as many volunteers roles as possible. Yeah,
and they ended up owning the ministry. It became their ministry because of that principle.
Absolutely, absolutely. And some of them are full-time ministry now. But yes. And then we would say, now go on your campus, start a Bible club, go minister to the cheerleaders, football players, baseball players, because, you know, high schools have all these affinity groups. Yep. And so kids were, ministering on their campuses. And this was in the 80s.
Wow. Fast forward, you are the young adults pastor. Is that right? At Horizon?
I was a youth pastor.
The youth pastor, excuse me. So you're the youth pastor at Horizon. You guys launched the Rock Church, was it in 2000? So, wow. So it's been 19 years.
19 years.
And you guys quickly became, I think, the biggest church in San Diego, one of the biggest churches in San Diego, one of the fastest growing churches. Yeah. You're spread across how many campuses now? 8?
Well, we call 7 campuses. Okay. We have 7 campuses. What we call campuses. Yeah.
And you're reaching how many people on a Sunday morning?
It depends on how you count. There's about 13,000 people in buildings, and then another 17, 18, 15, 19,000. It fluctuates online, so a 30,000-ish on a Sunday.
How were you able to grow that?
Well, God did it. That's
a good answer. That's a good answer.
When I was at Horizon, we went from 1 service to 2 services, and they were overflowing. And someone asked me, how do you do it? I said, well, if you have to ask the question, I don't have an answer you can understand, because it's not, we were just preaching the gospel, and I think that, I think people have to be careful not to measure success by a number, even though I'm a numbers guy. I measure everything, right? You can't measure anything without a number. However, everybody has a different capacity. And, I just want to be faithful to my capacity. Some other guys have a capacity. Brian Houston has I don't know how many 100,000 people around the world. I could never see that's a calling on his life, and he has a different capacity, right? So it's not whether that's better or worse, or some church that has 500 is worse than mine. It's really, everybody has to be faithful to what they've been given to do and steward, and that's it. So I'm just trying to be faithful to what God has given me.
And so one of my favorite passages is Matthew 25. Obviously, the center of that is the parable of the talents, right? Which is about what you're talking about, right? Managing to the best of your capacity. And so what I'm gathering from you is that we're not all going to have the same size platform. We're not all going to have the same influence, but you are doing your very best to be faithful with the talent that God has given, the personality, the ability to speak, the charisma, the charm. Like, you're doing your very best to leverage that for Jesus.
Exactly. In that Matthew 25, he says, excuse me, if you're faithful in little, I'll give you, I'll entrust you with much. And every day, excuse me, every day when you put your head on the pillow,
Mm-hmm.
either God or the devil is going to say, well done, good and faithful servant. So I want God to say, well done, good and faithful servant every night. That's all. He's not going to say, how many people did you have? Yeah. He's going to say, did you do what I told you? Yeah. Because the greatest commandment is to love God, to love God is obey God. So my focus is, you know, am I obeying God? Yeah. And if I do that, I'm good.
That's good. Now, you've also became an author, but not just like any old author that just threw his book on Amazon, self-published. Like this joint got an endorsement from Bishop T.D. Jakes. There's a forward on it by Drew Brees. One of my and I'm not just saying this. I really loved this Third Option book. You brought a copy for us. How did you stumble across this concept of like racial reconciliation? Or is it just another one of those things that's an overflow of who you naturally are?
Yeah, you know, I grew up with a white grandmother, half Chinese black grandmother, 2 black grandfathers. My household was diverse. I grew up in a black neighborhood, went to school in a white neighborhood, and got harassed in the white neighborhood because I wasn't black. Got harassed in the black neighborhood because I wasn't black enough. So, and I was born in 1960, so it was the 60s when I was.
It's before the Civil Rights Bill, right?
After, but you know, Martin Luther King was killed when I was 8. So we were right in the middle of all that. And I remember when he got killed, me thinking, what do we do? But my world was divided, and all of our worlds was back then. Yeah. And so racism was in your face. It was on television. You rarely saw black people on television. Television was black and white. You know, it was before color TV. At least I remember black and white TV. And so it's been something that has been a burden on my heart and has plagued my family all my life. And when I got a chance to write this book, I jumped at it and really didn't know what it ended up being. What it is now, a lot of the information in this book I never even heard of until after I started writing this book, which was a godsend, because after I got into it, I was like, I don't know if I have a whole lot to say. But then God sent some people into my life and started teaching me how to express what was on my heart. And, you know, we live in a divided culture, us versus them. And the third option is that we honor what we have in common. And so I wanted to write a book to give people tools to become united without pointing fingers at people and saying, you're wrong, we're right, because that's the whole culture now. Everybody's fighting about who's right. But we're all flawed in some way. And so this book is about how can we focus on the similarities we have and the things that we have in common, because we have more things in common than we have that are different. And if we focus and lean into those things that we have in common, everybody listening now probably likes food, probably likes sleep, probably likes being loved and valued and knowing what their life is about, loves to have family. And if we focused on doing those things, we'd realize that the differences that we have actually make us better. They actually enrich our life. The people that are from different cultures enrich my life as much as the people from the same culture. So this book is about how to get past the us versus them culture and say, what can we talk? How can we focus on what we have in common?
I love that. What I appreciated about this book is I really enjoyed sociology back in college. And I appreciated that you were obviously unapologetic about the gospel principles, but you were also, I mean, your sociology was on point, you know? So talk about this idea of in-groups and out-groups and like Jesus's heart for that.
Exactly. Every single one of us belong to multiple groups. Guys are a group, you know, rappers are a group. Country music singers are a group. Country music guitar players are a group. You know, we all. And when you identify the groups that are people who are like you, that's your in group. Anybody not in one of those groups is your out group. Right. And when you identify your in group, you give in group bias. You're more comfortable with those people. You're more familiar. You understand them better. The people in your out group you don't understand. So we stereotype. You know, if you're not Muslim and you don't hang around Muslims, that's your out group. You probably don't understand them except what you hear on TV. And so you may have 2 or 3 bits of information that may not even be true, but that's all you know. And so you stereotype. And so what we need to do is create one big in-group. Everybody's made in the human race. Everybody's made in the image of God. So therefore, we all belong to that group. We also belong to a group of people who love food. And as I said before, we love sleep. We love family. We love our kids, our parents. And so there are a lot of things that that create one big in-group. And there's a lot of ways you can include everybody you know into your in-group and give them favor. You know, the greatest commandment is to love God with your heart, mind, and soul. And then the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. And one of the things we do is we rename people something less than neighbor. We make them part of our out-group. And when you rename someone less than neighbor, you dehumanize them and you give yourself excuse not to love them because they're not your neighbor. So you could actually believe and think you're believing the Bible and obeying the Bible because you just rename them less than your neighbor when in fact they are your neighbor. And so if you rename people neighbor, now you are biblically obligated to love them like yourself. But because we don't want to do that because we're selfish, we rename them. We call them a white this or a black this or illegal or immigrant or animal or criminal. And then all of a sudden it's okay for them to get mistreated because they're not on my level. And so we have to say, no, that person is my neighbor. They're in my in-group and they deserve what I deserve. And I got to love them just like I want to be loved.
Treat people who are not in your in-group like they are in your in-group.
And yes, and I'll take it one step further, find reasons to make the people who are your out-group actually your in-group.
Yeah, that's good.
So if I see someone I have nothing in common, at least I think, all I got to go is talk to them. And I realize they got eyes like me, they got a nose like me, they eat like me, and I could find out all these ways that they're just like me. And so let me focus on that. And all of a sudden I got a friend. He may have a different language, a different culture. Guess what? I got a friend who could teach me stuff. That's how I got to look at it.
That's good. That's good. I think this message, obviously it's a timeless message, but I think it's so timely for the climate that we're in, climate that we're about to go into now. And I'll be honest, this book specifically has given me just a softened heart towards people I disagree with, whether politically, socially. And it also echoes one of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is seek to understand before seeking to be understood. Is there any kind of influence there?
No, but there is a chapter on race consultations, not race conversations.
Okay.
Every time you have a conversation with somebody, because you do see color, your eyes cannot not
Thank you
see
for
color.
saying that, because so many people are like, I don't see color.
Well,
like when you had that whole chapter, you were like, just it's okay, because you're actually, when you're saying you don't see color, it's like you're not seeing the fullness of who God is.
Well,
right?
you're just lying.
Yeah.
I mean, but I get the sentiment. Like I want to treat you the same, but really you're erasing someone's experience, and you're lying to yourself. And people only say it when they see people of color. Right. 2 white people don't say that to each other. Right. And so, but God wants us to see what He created. Yeah. And you know the Bible says that if you to bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. Well, if I don't see your color and understand your burden, by the way, white's a color. And white has a burden. White people have a burden too. So if I don't see your color and respect your burden, I can't carry it.
That's good.
But if I say I don't see color, one of the meanings of that, whether it's your meaning or not, is I don't want to deal with your problem. I don't want to deal with what your color brings to the table because I just rather us act like it's not there, and that's very offensive. So, but we should see color, and because we do see color, let me have a race consultation. Even if 2 white people are talking, or 2 black people are talking, or 2 Latinos or Puerto Ricans are talking, they're having a race conversation. They know they're talking to someone who's like them. And so what's happening, your idea when you're having that conversation, your idea of someone who is like you is either being reinforced or challenged. And so when you talk to somebody, whether they're like you or not, let them self-disclose to you who they are. Let them self-disclose to you their dreams, their pains, what they have in common with you. And so learn from them instead of imposing on them what you think they are.
Yeah, because everybody's not, like, all races, nationalities aren't the same, right? And I think a lot of times we do that. It's just like, well, you're in this box, therefore you have to think this and feel this and believe
all white
this.
people aren't the same, all black people aren't the same. And I say Latinos, there's dozens of Latin, and not even Latin, Spanish, because you have Latin America, then you have Spain. You have a lot of Spanish cultures that are so different. And even their Spanishes have strong variations. So you're right. We're all so very, but that's the beauty of the human race. you know, that's the beauty of different cultures and foods and how we do weddings and how we raise our kids. And
that's good. So I think one of the things that's been most beneficial in my life is I grew up in Normal Heights in the early 90s, much different. And I remember from a very young age, I've had very strong Christian men, black men, who have speaking not just life over me, but mentored me, discipled me after I got saved, and really I just had such a different nuanced view of race and social issues, and especially in light of God, because they were all believers, most of them. And so they were entrepreneurs, they worked hard, they were great fathers. So I had a very different perspective than the cultural caricature of a black male, right? But I travel and I go to places like the Midwest and down south, and people haven't had the same access I've had. They haven't had the same relationships I've had. What advice would you give them in terms of how to navigate some of this terrain where they're just like, that's all good, Miles, but I don't know any black people. I literally know people that don't know any black people. So then all they have is the media pushed caricature of what a black male is or a black woman is.
And I did 2 chapters in the book on blind spots. And so if someone's your out group, you don't know a black person, you don't know a Chinese person, you don't know a Muslim, and all you hear about is, or you get your information from anecdotal information on the media, there's no firsthand information. And there's no firsthand information that's involved, like, you know, over time. You just first have to say, there's a lot I don't know. You just have to
start in that place of humility.
You have to start there. I don't know the facts. And so I have to be a learner. And if I don't know, I need to not speak out of ignorance.
That's good.
And so I think stay there, because if I don't know and I don't say anything, then I haven't offended anybody. I'm still in the learning process. And
instead of just saying what you think, even though you don't have an actual experience.
Instead of nodding in agreement with people who don't know as well. Because if you don't know, probably the people around you, it may be that they don't know either. And so don't get involved in that, because you're just reinforcing, you know, stuff that's not true.
What's one takeaway outside of we want them to go and read the book?
Get the book. Go to Amazon.
There's the audio version as well, right?
19 hours I did. Took me 19 hours.
You read your audio book.
I read it.
Thank you.
3 days in a row.
I tried to listen to TD Jakes' audio book. I was so disappointed that he didn't read it. I didn't even finish. Great book. Outside of like, go get the book, because you guys do need, like, I really believe a lot of us need this book. Most of us probably need this book. What's one just piece of advice, one nugget that you could leave people with in terms of how to navigate and continue in this place of just having that humble posture? You know what I mean?
There's a lot, but I would say name everybody neighbor. Whatever you label someone, you cannot see them outside that label. So if you call someone stupid, you will never see them smart. If you call them ugly, you will never see them beautiful. If you call them short, you'll never see them tall, even though they're taller than you. And so if you call someone a black this or a white this or an immigrant or illegal or privileged or whatever it is, and you criticize someone, that's the lens through which you will see everything about them, and you will apply everything about that insult on them. But if you say, that's my neighbor.
I like that word.
And that's my neighbor. Oh, that's my brother or my sister, right? That's my neighbor. Now you're saying you are my equal, and you now enable yourself to see the positive in them and the things that are like you in them, and it will empower you to love them and live out the third option. It won't be an us first them, it's going to be we.
I love that, man. Pastor Miles Mcpherson, make sure you guys are following him on all platforms. We're going to link the book in the description, in the pinned comment, his Instagram. Make sure you guys support this book, man. We collaborated on a song called The Third Option.
It was awesome.
It was super fun, man. And so I need you guys to read this. A lot of us need this book. Check it out. I promise you won't be disappointed. Pastor Miles, thank you so much.
At Miles Mcpherson, follow me. Check it out.